Hello folks and welcome to Tippcast this morning with myself, Shane Stapleton, joined as ever by the head of sport and the Nina Guardian, Shane Brophy. We were hoping to have Anthony Shelley on to talk football, but technical difficulties has precluded us from doing that, Shane. So this is the danger of live shows. This sort of things can happen now and again.
Absolutely, yeah. I suppose modern technology where he was, you think he was in the same setup 2 weeks ago and we had him, was perfect. And this week, not playing ball, but sure, how's ever, we'll crack on with a good show.
We sure will. We'll just start off with the football anyway. There was a fairly big upset in round 2 of the County Football Championship. Mile Rovers were beaten by Rockwell Rovers. Did many people see this coming at all? Not that the weather now was ideal for football, but would anyone have predicted this?
Yes and no. Look, I think it's fair to say Mile Rovers are not the force to wear of a couple of years ago, 2018 when they won the county championship. Like, they're just, I think at underage level, they're not bringing through the dominant or the strong teams that would have done in prior to that. Look, I suppose then you got Friday night and the conditions, and I suppose, look, it was set up then for Rockwell, who would have been underdogs. There's no doubt. There's no point saying otherwise. Like, it's a huge win for Rockwell Rovers. Like, to beat a team like Mile Rovers, like that's massive for them. Like, so, like, you think about it, like Mile Rovers, they're not quite out of the quarter-final race, but nearly at this stage for Mile Rovers, it's about avoiding relegation. And you think about it, 3 teams are going down this year, and one is coming up. It's like over the next 2 years, the numbers in senior football are whittled down from 16 to 12. So, like at the moment, like, you have Mile Rovers in difficulty, Ardfinnan are in difficulty. Like, you could have a couple of really big traditional football powers potentially being relegated this year.
And I suppose the other game in that group, JK Brackens beat Ballyporeen. And, they met 12 months ago. It was a 3-point win for Brackens. This time it was done slightly differently. Ballyporeen led by 5 points at the break, but Brackens just took over the rest of the game. And very interesting to note that in the match report in the Nina Guardian, that the man of the match was Paddy Cadell. So he's hitting the ground running after coming back from the cruciate injury. It wasn't a cruciate tear, but it was a cruciate injury.
Yeah, like, it's like, fair. Like, it's, I would thought maybe after getting 17-20 minutes against Nina in the hurling the previous week, I said maybe he'd get half an hour into football. But God, he really seems to be ahead of schedule, and like, to get a start as he did in that game. And look, there's no doubt about it in both hurling and football. Like, when he's their spiritual leader. Like, when he's given the captaincy of your senior team at 20, 21 years of age, there's something about him. And like, to have him back is massive, not only for the football, but which is their primary focus now, because they're in the quarterfinals. And look, I think they're a dark horse. Like, they've been thereabouts for a few years, but like, they can really go at this. And now, when they're going into the relegation battle in the hurling, I think they'll be fine. I think they'll stay up. Like, but so it's massive for him. But look, to fall 7 points behind at the start of the second half, like, which they did on Saturday, and to come back and win by 3, like, that's a fair effort against I suppose a Ballyporeen side that really seemed to be getting the max out of themselves this year without Conor Sweeney. Like, they had beaten Rockwell, they had like, they were in a good position in this game, like, to be so far ahead. And I suppose it'd be disappointing for them not to have held out. But look, they're still in the box seat maybe to finish second. Like, but they have a tough finish against Mile Rovers. You think Mile Rovers, whatever they have left, they're going to bring it out in that final group game in 2 weeks' time. Like, so, yeah, I suppose for Brackens, like, they're as good as in with their score difference, they're probably as good as in the quarter final. And look, we've seen that they've been very, very competitive in football over the last couple of years. And yeah, I think they'll be thereabouts come the end of it.
Yeah. Okay. Well, look, we're going to go to round 1 or group 1, I should say, in a second. But just a reminder that the Nina Guardian is out now, and there's plenty of coverage of Sharon Maudsley and her pursuit at the World Athletics Championship, and plenty of other stuff coming up as well. So check that in all the local shops. Just to circle back then to Group 1 in the Football Championship. Drummond beat Kilsheal and Kilcash 111-110, and you kind of suggested last week with how well Drum are already going in the hurling, and maybe they could put extra focus in the football now. So number 1, is that what we're seeing there? Because Kilsheal and Kilcash are obviously no mugs. And then Clonmel beat Aero Gannacarty Donahill 319 to 2 points. That is just a serious pacing, and it's a disappointing challenge from Aero, but Clonmel maybe they're serving out notice.
Yeah, that's grim. Like, you think, while they beat Drum in the first round, like which was a desperate game, 7 points to 6, like it's not good, like for I suppose a senior team to be that uncompetitive, even against a team as strong as Commercial. So like you'd think it. And Carter, you still have a chance actually to qualify in the quarterfinals. Like if they beat Kitcheelan, which you wouldn't say is beyond them, like they're going to probably get through as the runner-up, even though it looks like they have very little chance of even winning the championship. So like that's disappointing. But I suppose the big game in that group was Drum against Kitcheelan, and I saw a nice chunk of this on Saturday evening, and I thought Drum were full value. Like Drum should have won this game by an awful lot more. They were. You would think that Kilsheelan probably the greater pedigree in football, but Drum were by far the better team. Like if they had taken their chances, like they should have won this game pulling away. Like they actually looked a better coach football team. They held on to possession. They worked the ball well. Guys coming off the shoulder, just their finishing in certain aspects let them down. Whereas at the other end of the field, Kilsheelan, they just looked like they were snatching at shots. It was like if their game plan is we get the ball in as quick as we can, and if we get our first sight at goal, you have a shot. And I thought that's fine. And like we know they have some quality inside forwards, but like sometimes you've got to it's not on. We'll recycle. We'll be patient and then get a good shot away. Like and look, okay, they only lost by a point, but look, I thought from what I was looking at them, from what I was looking at it looked as if the team that had put more effort into football this year with Drum and Inch. And like Drum, I suppose it's probably you look at the team Drum put out, like they put out Seamus Callan and 6, like it wasn't look, I suppose they were qualified in hurling probably means they had nothing to lose. Like they were able to put a strong team out in this one, and they got the win. I think the fascinating thing for me now is like they probably have to get a win against Commercials to qualify, and like they can really go after it. And I think it'd be fascinating to see how they match up against Commercials. Like so, look, they won a County Minor A championship, I think 2015, 2016. So look, a lot of these guys have pedigree. So like I'll be fascinated to see how they match up against Commercials and how they take them on. Like I think physically and athletically they match up well against Commercials. It's whether they have the scoring touch at the top end of the field. But look, great win for them. Like, and look, the defeat for Kilsheelan is not fatal. You look at their 0 points and a -2 score difference, but on paper they have a very winnable game against Anacarty in the last round. And I think if they win that, they'll probably get through on score difference. Provided you think if Drum even lose by 2 or 3 points, Commercials and Kilsheelan would then qualify in score difference. Like Anacarty, you would think, unless they get at least a draw against Kilsheelan, they're out because their score difference took such a hammering. So yeah, it's fascinating. Commercials will go through, but it'll be fascinating to see who goes through in second place.
Yeah, and just some of the lads who did the scoring for Drum and Inch: Stevie Nolan, Jamie Maloney, and David Butler. Group 2 then.
Stevie Nolan played County Minor, dual, I think. David Butler played senior for a few years, junior for a few years. So like they've loads of guys. Emmett Maloney's on the senior squad. They've loads of guys that have played a bit of inter-county ball. So I'm fascinated to see how they go up against Commercials like in 2 weeks.
Yeah, and keep your comments coming in, whether you're a football man or hurling man, football woman, hurling woman, just keep the comments coming in. Lockmore Castleiney beat Ardfinnan 11 points to 6 in Group 2. And then Ballina, who've been the upstarts that we've talked about so far this year, they had a narrow defeat to Mycarkey Burris, 15 points to 113. So I'm sure they'll be sick enough.
They won it. Maybe I had a typo on that. No, they won 15 to 1-3. So
15 to 1-3. Oh no, that's misread by me then.
Yeah. Another impressive win for Ballina. Look, it has to be said that Mycarkey were missing 4 of the players that were part of the win over Lockmore. But even with that, I think Ballina probably would have had a more. I think they still would have won out, or maybe would have been slightly closer. But then Mycarkey had a couple of goal chances in the game, which if they'd taken, they might have made it a little bit closer. But look, Ballina was probably a game they were expected to win, and they've done that. So probably as good as in the knockout stages for them, which is excellent. And look, Stephen O'Brien getting another few minutes in under the belt off the bench, like so they're in a good place. Lockmore, look at half time, I think they were losing 6 points to 5, and they were facing an exit from the championship at that stage, but they dug it out in the second half, winning 11-6. Like, so, like, I suppose brilliant. I suppose the final round now, like, it's still all to play for, like, Ballina v Lockmore on Saturday week. I think that's a money goal. Like, that's going to be a real test of Ballina's credentials. Was like, if, like, well, like, after scoring 6-11 and 1-15, well, Lockmore are not going to concede all that amount. So that's going to be a tough battle, and like, Lockmore probably need to win that game, because I wouldn't rule out my Carkey beating Ardfinnan, but probably Ardfinnan maybe would shade it. And assuming, like, well, I suppose Lockmore probably have to assume my Carkey are going to win, which means Lockmore have to win, and then the whole thing goes down to score difference. Like, so, it's a big game for Lockmore, like, because they'd be, and there's no guarantee they'll beat Ballina either. Like, because I just think it'll be fascinating now, because Ballina will be playing one of the real contenders, like, and they can really match up and see how they compare against probably a championship contender.
Okay, and the one group we haven't talked about just yet is Group 3. So Upper Church Strumban, they beat Killinall 1-6-4, and then Care had just a little bit too much for Arvale Rovers, 112-110.
Yeah, Upper Church in Killinall was on Friday night. I saw a good chunk of this, and I feel the players in the driving rain and the rag, and there was a couple of puddles there from time to time in the game. So look, 1-6-4 points. It wasn't easy on the eye, but, like, typical Upper Church now at the moment, whether it's hurling or football, like, they will just get the max out of themselves. And just if every time I fancied Killinall, I thought they were very impressive against Arravale in the first round. But look, Upper Church just rolled up their sleeves, kept it tight, got the crucial goal against the Wind in the first half, which was the key score, like, and pushed on in the second half. So, like, it's a great place for our Upper Church. They've won the group now with a game to spare. Like, so their last round game against Arravale is a dead rubber. Like, Arravale are heading for the relegation playoffs. So, but even though Arravale produced a much better performance in the loss to Care, like, and big result for Care, like, in having Liam Casey back, like, was big shove on to them. Like, and now they have, I suppose, the winner takes all game with Killinall in the final round to see who goes through as the second quarter final. So you think that's a very tight one to call. And, like, for Care's point of view, like, they were disappointing in the hurling in South Tip this year, like, and they've always had a great pedigree in football, and they got to a couple of under-21 finals. You'd love to see them maybe kick on and maybe get to a quarter-final, semi-final, and just end that year on a high. Like, it's like they're a club with a decent population base down there, and you like to see them going a little better.
Yeah, and then you wanted to do your second Tip football rankings of the year. So I'll bring it up on screen here, and you can run through any changes that we've seen after your first one.
I can't remember. I haven't gone through the first ones, but I hadn't changed much. I started at the bottom. Arravale are unchanged on bottom of the table. Improved performance against Care, but still at the bottom. My Rovers, 2 defeats out of 2 to Ballyporeen and to Jacob Brackens and Rockwell Rovers. Even though Brackens and Rockwell are in the top 8, but, like, it's disappointing. Maybe I could have put Rovers up ahead of Anacarty. Like, even though Anacarty won a game, but, like, they've only scored 9 points in 2 matches, which is, like, that's you're not going to win too many more matches doing that. Like, if Ardfinnan, I thought I performed pretty well against Ballina and Lockmore. Like, so I think that the match against Carkey Burriston in 11th. I suppose Carkey, if they were able to put out their strongest team against Ballina, I think they'll have gone higher than still wouldn't have dropped as far as they did, but they're 11, just ahead of Care. Killinall dropped down to 10. Kilsheelan at 9. Like, they've lost 2 games, but their level of performance against Commercials and Drum was pretty decent. Like, so, like, I think they should beat Anacarty and get into the quarterfinals. Drum and Inch at 8, great win over Kilsheelan. So after the Anacarty loss, so I thought pretty good. Rockwell after beating my Rovers, and then Arrow lost to Ballyporeen there at 7. Ballyporeen at 6. Lockmore at 5. Still waiting for them to explode, but, like, they're probably just doing enough at the moment. I think I think they'll have enough maybe to get through the group stage. Bracken's at 4, Upperchurch up to 3, 2 wins from 2, and my top 2 unchanged, Ballina at 2 and Commercials at 1. So I think there's the last round. I think every game, 20 games, 7 of the 8 games have something to play for, which is great to have.
Yeah, and I'm just looking at the rankings that we did the first day, and some of the big dramatic changes really. Lockmore had started off at 11th, now they're up to 5th, and Drum and Inch, they'd been at 13th, now they're at 8th, and Upperchurch, they dropped a couple of places, and Killinall have shot down the rankings, I should say. They were 4th, and now you have them at 10th. So there's plenty of movement as well, and that's the thing with these power rankings. Yeah. When you've so few games to dictate in the championship, it can end up changing around massively.
Like it's based on, like people say, it's a combination of results and it's a combination of performance. And I know people would think Anacarty at 14th, even though they've won a game, and Kilsheelan at 9, even though they've lost 2 games. But like you have to, maybe who are you playing? When are you playing them? Who was the opponent missing? Was it a quality game or a bad game? Like, so that's the sort of the way it all adds into what it could produce there.
Yeah. Did you get much chip from over your last hurling power rankings?
Not as much. So we must be getting a lot of it right, because I've been seeing the other platforms have other power rankings, and a lot of them are generally pretty much the same. Maybe in some positions, particularly at the top end, like the middle, I suppose, can be a bit of a mishmash depending on your point of view.
And as we finish up on the football chat, there hasn't really been much talk about who's going to take over from David Power as senior football manager. Has it all gone quiet?
Yeah, still quiet now. I suppose I know that their target was get it done by the quarterfinals, which is in mid-September. So I suppose they still have the guts of 3 weeks. You'd like to think they're dotting the I's and crossing the T's at this stage. They have maybe interviews done, and others a county board meeting tomorrow night in Thurles. So there will probably be an update there on how the process is going, and plus they also have to ratify a new minor manager. Well, that's not to say the previous manager, John McNamara, won't be renominated again. While he hasn't stepped down, his term was up, and I think a couple of his selectors had stepped away. So the football committee were just reopening it for nominations, and look, it could well be that John stays on, but just they wanted to see maybe a new part of the makeup of his management team. So, but I know at development squad level, like they've been very, very happy with maybe the competitiveness of our development squad teams over the last couple of years. So you'd like to think maybe we won't see the great days of maybe 10 years ago when we were getting to Munster finals a lot at minor level. But I suppose with the way things are with inter-county now, where hurling and football, even at development squad level, it's hard you can't nearly do both. Like it'd be good to see Tip maybe at least getting up to the Limerick Clare level. And look, I suppose a shout out to I suppose this weekend the Arabon tournament is on in West Tipperary this weekend under 15. Like it's always a great competition, and I suppose we're looking 2 years hence maybe to see what talent will be coming from minor squads. So I suppose if anybody wants to see more hurling on top of the club games this weekend, the Arabon is in West Tipperary on Saturday.
Well, delighted to say we've Dennis Kelly joining us now. Dennis, how are things at you?
Not too bad, Shane. Thanks.
Yeah, we've talked football now. We're about to tee up some heavyweight hurling clashes this weekend. Of the 24 teams that are in the competition, 22 of them still have something to play for. Dennis, it's been a very tight, even competition, and I'd say that there's no obvious county title winners from here.
No, definitely. It's been a great championship. It was really enjoyable so far. And as I say, I think it's the Brackens and Drum have not much to play for in their game, but everyone else is playing for something. So it's really good looking through it there last night. There's some, teams that you thought maybe were gone through, but they'd like to top their groups now as well. So there's still all to play for. But it's been a great championship, and all the 3 tiers are fairly evenly matched. There's very few games that are one-sided. So it's been really enjoyable.
Has the Lazarus nickname stuck to you, Dennis?
I'm keeping the head down now. There's a few telling their kids about the Bible story there since, but I know it was good. It was a good buzz, a great finish to that game. It was
religion in Templemore next week. The kids will be saying, I thought Brendan Maher was Lazarus, not
exactly, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, well, look, we'll start off with Group 1 of the County Championship, and Mullinahone against Éire Óg. Shane, this one is it's a straight shootout for a runners-up spot, really.
Yeah, the other game in the group, Drum and Brackens, is a dead rubber, and nothing at stake for either. Maybe just bare momentum to keep them going. So I still think that'll be competitive enough. Particularly for Brackens, they need to find a bit of form, for the relegation games, But yeah, Mullinahone and Nina, more at stake for Mullinahone. It's win or out for them, really. Nina have the preliminary quarter final to fall back in, but I don't think Nina will be keen not to have to use that, because look, it's an extra game. It's an extra game in the legs. Be interesting to see now whether Jake or Tommy Heffernan line out on Sunday. I know they're getting close to a return. Like I said it last week, I was just very impressed with the way Nina went about their business against Jacob Rex. Like sometimes when you lose key players like that, maybe lads can maybe lose a bit of confidence. But like I just thought they were so clinical, and they were brought guys off the bench, Ben West and Keane Crowley, who finished the game off. So I would probably still fancy Nina here, because I just think regardless of maybe who they have and who they don't have, they're playing to a system, and lads are buying into it, and they find a way around it. So would I be surprised if Mullinahone won? Absolutely not, because look, Mikey O'Shea, Conor Whelan, particularly, I think Conor Whelan's probably one that maybe will be on Liam Cahill's radar, because I suppose he fits that athletic style of maybe inter-county player we need, playing for maybe in the half-back line, can do a job maybe at full-back as well. So probably Nina to shade it, but like just based on their two results against Drum, which were both tight games, I'd say not more than a puck of a ball. But yeah, it should be makings of a good game now in Temple 2 on Sunday.
Yeah, Dennis, what do you make of this Nina team? And like Shane mentioned, the absence of Heffernan and Morris, which would, scupper most teams. They wouldn't be able to absorb those sort of losses. But I wouldn't be totally convinced about having Barry Heffernan in the half forward line. I think he's a brilliant player. But what do you make of this team, and how far can they go this year?
Yeah, I think they can go all the way. Very impressed with them. Their bench, as Shane has said, they're very impressive. I suppose Barry Heffernan probably doesn't look fully fit yet, so I'd say that's why he's playing at that end. But he's tipping away at the finest. I'd say, by the time they get to the knockout stages, he should be up to speed. Paddy Murphy has gone back centre back there, and he's been a revelation there. He's playing there all his life. So they have a nice backbone to the team. Sam Farrell in the middle of the field is absolutely flying there. He's another good prospect there. So, up through the team, and Mikey Heffernan is still clocking up big scores, in the absence of Jake. So, I like to look up now. You just don't know when Nina get into the stadium. They blow hot and cold a bit, but at the same time, at the moment, I'd expect them to have too much for Mullinahone. Saying that, Mullinahone had a good win in their first game, and the last day they let in a couple of soft goals. Had they not done so, maybe they'd have troubled Drum a little bit more. But I'd expect Nina just to get the nod there.
Yeah, fascinating actually, Dennis, if they keep Sam O'Farrell in the middle of the field. I don't know whether it was because they were maybe short up the field that they decided to push Sam up and start Mark Farrell in corner back. So I just wonder if and when Nina get back to full strength, will Sam go back to corner back, or will they leave him in the middle of the field?
Yeah, he's very powerful going forward. I seen him in an under-19 match there. It was like a man against spies there. And going forward, he loves to go forward. So I think it was a good move. They probably seen him in action maybe there, said they'd try it. So look, they have options there anyway, but you'll be slow to put him back the way he's playing at the moment.
Yeah. And then Brackens, obviously, they're kind of propping up the rest at the bottom of the table at the moment. They're on 0 points after 2 games. Do you expect Drum to keep the momentum going? I saw them against Nina, and they were quite impressive, albeit Nina were missing 1 or 2. But what do you make of Drum so far, Dennis?
Look, at Drum have been tipping along nicely. They're not, they're not setting the place ablaze or anything, but at the same time, they're getting their job done. I think Drum, just hearing from people around, that they're going to maybe use some of their bench this weekend. It's a match that they need to get game time into some lads, and maybe give them a chance. So at the same time, they won't want to Brackens beating them, because there's great rivalry there between the two. So I'd say they'll give a few extra lads a run out, but at the same time they'll be going all guns blazing. And look, they're going grand, and they'll be happy enough the way they're going at the minute, but they'll probably have to find more to win a county final.
Yeah, it's a lovely position to be in for Drum, that they can use the panel, Shane, because they're guaranteed top no matter who wins between Nina and Mullinahone.
Yeah, it all depends on whether I suppose like their intermediate team is out Saturday. So look, if they qualify, they probably can't go too deep into the squad. If they're knocked out, they can probably pull a few guys off that squad. And but yeah, I think the fact that it's 3 weeks to a quarter final, I suppose it all depends. Like, they have the football match the following week, whether they might have one eye in that. But look, I suppose you have 3 weeks to the next hurling match. Probably have to. It'd be hard to find a challenge match then. In the meantime, so they'll probably have to go hard at this. And I think Brackens will too. Because look, I think anybody that's in relegation, these are big games, because you have to find a bit of form. And I'm sure, if Paddy Cadell, I'm sure if he started last weekend and came through it fine, he'll start in this one. And just if he goes back into centre back, and I just think the whole thing with Brackens will settle down with his presence there in the field. It's I think they have enough scoring power up front. They probably need to find a bit more out of Shane Doyle. I think he's been a bit quiet this year. I suppose compared to a few years when he was, maybe they need to create a few more sideline balls or something to get him going when he was driving them over from all distances and thence. But it's I suppose I wouldn't be surprised if Brackens won this one again, just because they'll probably have a bit more in their need to find a bit of form in this one. But I suppose, yeah, the fact that it's a mid derby too, there'll probably be a bit of spice to it as well. So it might be a dead rubber on paper, but it could be a fiery one on the field on Sunday.
Yeah, so Group 2 then, Toomevara are top there with 4 points. Roscrea, they're on 3. And Roscrea will meet Toom. So Moycarkey, Burris and Killerwan are already, they're not going to qualify. But Moycarkey, assuming there isn't a draw in the other game, they still have an opportunity to qualify here. Dennis, I don't think too many people at the start of the year were thinking that the county champions, Killerwan, would be out of the championship with a game to go.
No, you definitely wouldn't. But I suppose they've been hit with injuries and travel and different things. And they probably, for 25 minutes the last day against Roscrea, looked like maybe they were going to regain a bit of form, but then they blew up a little bit. So they're really backs are to the wall there now. McCarthy still have a chance of qualifying. If Toom beat Roscrea, McCarthy could still qualify. There's not a massive score difference, six points between them. So they'll be going all guns blazing for that as well. But you'd expect maybe Killerwan to finally. They showed glimpses the last day, got a few nice scores there in that first half, but then just fell away a little bit. But I expect them to come strong now for this one.
Yeah, Gary too, he was on here a couple of weeks ago when we were doing a power rankings, Dennis, and he was saying that Toomevara won't win a county title this year, although he qualified it by saying he thinks they're building towards one in the next coming years. What's the mood in Toomevara in terms of where they can go this year?
I think they're taking it gradual, step by step. It's a real bonus, I suppose. Darren McCarthy has been a huge bonus. He's a marquee forward there for Toom now, and he's only in on the panel, so that's huge. Like, you had the likes of Jack Delaney, but he hadn't much help there at times. Maybe Mark McCarthy will come back in as well. So they have a bit of firepower there now, and I'd say they won't be getting carried away with themselves because the group isn't as strong as some groups, but at the same time they're moving along nicely, and you'd have to be impressed the way they're playing. I like the style. They've direct mixed in with playing through the lines, and they're very well coached, and you can see that in them. So look, there'll be a match for a lot of teams. Won't want to get them in a quarter final, but they'll probably want to finish it out. It'd be a sickener for them now not to top the group after having such a great start to the campaign. So they'll probably want to finish it out with a win over Roscrea.
Yeah, do you see Roscrea having the firepower to do that, Shane?
Oh, I do. I think I don't think Roscrea will fear Toomevara in the slightest, and this is not downplaying Toom by any means. I suppose traditionally, even though Toom would have the better pedigree, I think Roscrea would always look and see that they always have maybe the match for them in terms of hurling ability. And now, on top of that, you have Roscrea coming in with confidence after beating Killerwan and the draw with Moycarkey. I think Roscrea will be smelling, lads. There's no reason why we can't get a win here and maybe get into the quarterfinals direct. And as Dennis said, if Toom don't win and then finish second, they could have potentially drawn to a preliminary quarterfinal with an extra game. I think anybody that doesn't have top of the group secured they've got to go after this weekend. They can't just assume that we're through, because you could end up playing Sarsfields or Clonolty in a preliminary quarter final if it comes to it, and you just don't want to put yourself in a position where you're playing an extra game where you could potentially lose a guy for suspension or maybe pick up an injury. Like, it's an extra game, like it's hard on the legs, like. So yeah, I couldn't pick the two of them here. I think I wouldn't be surprised if both teams, I wouldn't say manufacture a draw, but if it's close to the finish and it's tight, and if a draw does both teams, I think they'll be glad to take it.
Yeah, and like ropey and all a year as Killerwan have had, and for those reasons that you mentioned, Dennis, can we really expect Mike Harkey to go from losing by 24 points to them last year to getting a victory this year?
I think maybe that was a freak result. You know, the McCarthy have been very competitive in this championship. Like, they could have beaten Toom de Leste. They had 21 there near the end, didn't go in. You know, and they missed a few chances as well at the end of that first half, really, when they probably had Toom in a little bit of trouble. They didn't take them. So they're not a million miles away from it. They drew with Rossgrey, like, so it's a real tight one group. And, you know, I'd expect them to give a good account of themselves. Like, you just don't know what way to go. And it depends on what Killerwan turn up. They've been Jekyll and Hyde there so far. So it depends on what Killerwan turn up.
Okay.
Mike Harkey sort of remind me a lot like of Holy Cross the last couple of years. They're on the cusp of something, but it's hard to get the wins when you're on the cusp of something. And yeah, it's as Dennis said, like, a win with a Rossgrey loss with a 6-point turnaround is not beyond the bounds of possibility. But I don't know. I think maybe Killerwan might have one last thing in the tail, maybe and produce a big performance and get themselves out of the relegation mire.
Well, you mentioned Holy Cross there. They're playing against Tipperary Kenyans this weekend. Both teams can still get through. Tipperary have lost both of their games, but there's still a chance they could progress. Lockmore will meet Upperchurch also, and currently Lockmore are on 4, Holy Cross and Upperchurch, they're both on 2 points each, and Tipperary, they're on nothing so far. But Holy Cross against Tipperary in Bursley this weekend, Shane, what way are you seeing that going?
You probably have to look at Holy Cross, like, so. I suppose they'd be disappointed, maybe. That's what they probably feel. Maybe they should have 3 points on the board, the way that the scoreboard issue worked out the last day. But look, they've got to put that behind them and maybe focus on the positive. I thought the performance for a lot of that game against Lockmore was very, very good. So look, I think if they bring that into Sunday's game, I think particularly up front, I think they'll have too much for Tipperary, who have been, again, very, very competitive. But you just see at senior level, if you're just a small bit short, it's hard to get the wins. Like, you think, like, the scores they put up against Lockmore and Upperchurch win an awful lot of games, but they're conceding too much on the other side. So, yeah, I'd lean towards Holy Cross, which then would mean the pressure goes on Upperchurch to beat Lockmore in the other game. And Upperchurch beat Lockmore in the mid semi-final, so they know they can beat him. But no, Lockmore will probably have an edge too. Like, so, like, it leave Lockmore maybe a little vulnerable if they don't win. Like, so, but with the game in the stadium, I think it probably plays to Lockmore's advantage. But Lockmore they have a lot to tidy up. Like, they're doing a lot right in the attacking end. But it's like 7 goals conceded in 2 matches is I know it probably will be something they'll have focused on maybe over the last few weeks.
And Dennis, just to go back to Holy Cross against Tipperary, I'm sure Sean Ryan has been marked by Cathal Barrett a lot in Tipperary training there in the last year or so, but the two of them will be looking to do their scoring for their teams this weekend.
They will, and that's probably a little bit of an issue for Holy Cross in that they have Cathal up front, but at the same time, they were caught a little bit at the back with the McGraths and that they hadn't been, maybe strong enough to mark them out of it. So while he's doing great work at one end, he's maybe caught at the other. And Shawnee Ryan he's one of the best forwards in the club championship, even though he's on a losing team. So, if Shawnee strikes form and himself and his brother are working inside there, Michael, I think it is as well, and they're lethal enough. It's just that they're leaking at the other end. If they could stop leaking the scores at the back, they'd have a chance. But you'd have to fancy Holy Cross. They were in hard luck the last day with the scoreboard saga and everything else. But you'd have to fancy them to come through in this one.
And Dennis, isn't that one of the kind of the big things with club management? If you're a county manager and you have a forward or two missing or whatever, or you feel you're light in one department, you just bring in another forward. Whereas at club level, you have to sort of sometimes square pegs round holes, move a Cathal Barrett up the field because you need that injection of power and pace and whatever. Like that's the difficulty with or the challenge of club management.
It is, and I suppose there are certain games then you might need to make a switch if needs be. So Holy Cross, right, for the last few years have been lacking a bit up front, and I think Cahill has brought that dynamism back up there. He's shown the same kind of footwork he shows at the back, but when he shows it up there, he's able to make a score or two. So they probably won't move him, but at the same time, if they're under pressure, they might have to in an odd game going forward.
Yeah. So Shane, are you looking at Lockmore to beat Upperchurch?
Yeah, I think any
matchups that you're interested in?
Holy Cross will qualify, but look, this is where Upperchurch sort of the same with the football last week when I didn't fancy them to beat Killinall. Like they could produce a big performance, and like they say that they've beaten a lot more already. So like it's you definitely think if there's a great urgency to the play, it'll be Upperchurches on Sunday. Like there's probably going to be one big, like there has been a couple of big upsets already. Like and would Lockmore exit in the championship on Sunday be surprised? It would be massive if it happened. Like so, but stranger things have happened.
Are there any matchups that you're particularly looking forward to in that match?
I guess, but not. What would just. I suppose how the Upperchurch defence probably trying to slow down that Lockmore attack and like, but then on the other hand, like the direct ball for the Upperchurch forwards, maybe Paul Shanahan going to full forward could be key because I thought the high ball against Holy Cross got an awful lot of joy off the high ball against Lockmore in the first half, so that could be one avenue of attack for Upperchurch and how maybe Lockmore try to do better there.
Yeah, and then I suppose we'll move on to Group 4, Borrislee against Turles Sarsfields in the stadium on Sunday, 2:15. It's going to be on TG Cahir, Dennis. Borrislee traditionally, or in recent times certainly, haven't had a good record against Turles Sarsfields. The manner of the victory against Kildangan, being 10 points ahead, having it won, then having it lost, then that late goal to win it. I think for Borrislee, rather than holding on to the 10-point win and seeing it out, this might actually be a big boost that this felt, okay, we've left it behind us, but now we've dug it out. That can sometimes be brilliant for a team.
It can, I'd say it definitely helped the confidence, and the hearts weren't good there near the end, I'd say, for some of the Borris lads, because to throw away a 10-point lead, it would have been criminal, really. In fairness, Kildangan really came strong, but at the same time, the lads showed great courage, I suppose, to come back, and Brendan was a big part of that, I suppose. It did unsettle the team at half-time. When you think Brendan Maher is a leader on the team, he's leader with Tip, let alone with Borrislee, and then to see him going off, it gives players a bit of a fright, I suppose, and it took him a good while to recover from it. But I think they could throw off the shackles a bit now against Sars because, right, they probably need something out of it to qualify, but at the same time, they could have been facing relegation as easily. So that's off the monkey off their back, and they can go at this one hard. And Sars, they haven't been fantastic either this year. They had a good finish to the game against Clonalty, but at the same time, they'll neither team fear each other too much, and I'd say it could be a right good game.
Yeah, and just Shane, to give the context to anyone who hasn't seen what's been going on in the group, Borrislee are top with 3 points, Kildangan have 2, so do Turles Sarsfields, and Clonalty Rossmore are on 1 point, and they were in a great position against Borrislee to win, but didn't see it out in the first day. But like we've talked there in recent weeks about how Turles have a lot of big players, big physical athletes, but maybe sometimes there's not as much pace across the pitch. Whereas Borrislee actually now, especially with Niall Kenny not there, they've an awful lot of smaller, nippier type players, and finding the balance is the big challenge. And of course, without putting Dennis on the spot, moving Jerry around might be key to that as well, which they've done. But so it's a contrasting of styles, I suppose, in some ways.
Yeah, look, I think Borrislee probably got their answer in the Kildangan match. They were so good in the first half with Jerry at 6, Brendan at 5, and Dan in the half hour. And then when Brendan goes off, they move Dan back to the half back line, and they miss his physical presence and his leadership in attack. And so I think they'll go back to what they did in the first half, and then towards the end of the Kildangan match. And look, we know just Dan is just such a presence, and he brings Devaney into the game, brings Kevin Maher into the game, Eddie Ryan, they have loads of finishers, so I think that's the way, that's the best way Borrislee are going to have a chance of beating Sarsfields, is to keep the ball moving quick, keep it on the move. Because as you said, Shane, the Turles team probably isn't loaded with maybe the low center of gravity stickmen that maybe that they would have had maybe in their pomp, like, so they're a bit more, slightly more cumbersome, but that doesn't mean they're less talented. Like the Stakelums, the Paddy Creans, Dennis Mars, they're not blessed with outstanding pace, which is probably the one thing that is probably missing from the Sarsfield's game at the moment.
Yeah, so Dennis, then just back to SARS. Like Dennis Maher was full back the last day, he was centre back the previous day. They have some excellent players, Connor Stakelum, Dara Stakelum, so on and so forth. They beat Clonoulty 120 to 117 the last day out. You know, where do you see them at the moment?
It's hard to call. They're going along nicely, but they haven't hit full form. Like they were poor against Kildangan, especially in the second half, and that was inside the stadium as well. So that'll probably hang over them a little bit. They definitely have the makings of a team that could go places, but at the moment they're not. You wouldn't be overly convinced. Their backs definitely look under pressure. I probably preferred Dennis Maher up front for him. He gave him a good focal point there. He doesn't seem to be as convincing at the back. He hasn't played there for a good while. But that's saying that he has a good physical presence. But I would say that they looked a bit vulnerable at times. Doyle for Clonoulty the last day did a lot of damage there. If he had any help, they might have got over the line. So it'll probably be an area.
Like if he was a more natural forward, like I know he played most of his hurling in full back, but like the amount of ball he won, if he had more of a forward's instinct, he could have filled his boots really. Like so.
Yeah, so they look a little bit vulnerable back there, but I suppose they have options there, like the likes of Jack Derby's on the bench, and he's an out and out back, and he might come in there as well. So there's possibilities for changes as well. But no, look at it, they definitely have the likes of Dara Stakelum and Billy McCarthy and these lads and Aidan McCormack. They're all well able to take scores, so it'll be interesting to see. But it was totally different. Say the Borrisley Clonoulty game versus the Kildangan and SARS game in the stadium. There was chalk and cheese there with those games. There was less physicality in the SARS game that day. You'd wonder now how it will fare out if Borris bring that physicality, which you'd expect him to bring, how SARS will deal with it,
Yeah, and then it's like Jerry's played as many games centre back probably in the last few years with Carlow IT, and I remember even watching him for the Borrisley under-21s a few years ago. Very comfortable there, isn't he?
He is, yeah, he is comfortable there, and he's just, it wasn't maybe firing on all cylinders up front. So, and I think Dan up front gives a greater push to the Borris team in general. Once you've seen him for the goal, for Brendan's goal, but once he goes at teams, lads are nearly afraid to tackle him, because if they do, it'll be a free. And if they don't, he might glide past them. So he is definitely a plus. I think Borris got the mix right in the first half against Kildangan, and as Shane said, you'd expect him to go somewhere along those lines again. And Paddy McCormack is there as well for Borris. He's only getting dipping his toe in senior level, so he could have a big game too on Sunday. All
right. So next on the block on that one, Shane.
I've gone for Borrisley. I think they've beaten Kildangan, who's beaten Thurston, so that's the sort of way I'm leaning. But like, then Thurles have the potential to produce a big performance like they have, and they're probably frustrated themselves that they haven't. Okay, they won a mid-championship, but like they've played 5-game hurling matches this year, and they've been good without being great. Like if they produce a big performance on Sunday, look, there's no doubt they can get the win. Like they have. The surprising thing for me in their first 2 games has been their inaccuracy. Like I thought they hit some terrible wides against Clonoulty. Like they probably should have won it by an awful lot more, and like there were good looks, but they were just very, very inaccurate. So maybe I'd like to think maybe they were doing a bit more shooting, practice and training for the last fortnight.
Okay, and then Dennis, the other game in the group, Clonoulty against Kildangan. Clonoulty should have beaten Borrisley, and their inside forwards, if they were on fire at all and maybe even took half their chances, they would have won that day, but it ended up a low score and draw. So obviously forwards was a problem that day. Forwards, then Jack Ryan going off injured didn't help them the last day out as well. So we'll see if he's fit. But do they have the scoring power for Kildangan? Because one thing Kildangan generally do is score.
Yeah, it's probably hard to see it. I think Jack Ryan, I'm hearing he's going to be fit. I'm also hearing Conor Hammersley is on the way back there. So he mightn't start, but he'll definitely be a plus off the bench, because they are lacking that bit of firepower. They have a good bit of youth up front. And I suppose the likes of Danny Slattery, he's a great little corner back, but they're using him up front, and he doesn't look all out at home up there. But at the same time, he's a fine hurler. So yeah, it looks, if they sit off Killadangan at all, you see in the second half against Borris, Killadangan, if they get that spare man and start, popping it over lads' heads, they'll absolutely annihilate you. But, so Clonolty will have to go probably man for man, or they'll have to be smart about what they're doing anyway. Definitely Borris kept Alan Flynn out of the game for a good spell in the North Championship and again the last day. And he's a vital player for Killadangan. So if he gets on ball and starts dictating, it'll be hard for Clonolty to win it.
What do you think, Shane?
Yeah, I think Clonolty can't afford to let this turn into a shootout. Killadangan have scored 223 and 125 in their last two games. Okay, won one and lost one. But I think if they get in that range again, I don't see Clonolty being able to beat them. So I think Clonolty will definitely play it tight, and they have some big men that, like you see, Boris Ali found it difficult to play against them. Okay, the conditions played a bit. Thurles Sarsfield found it difficult. So I think they'll definitely be getting very, very tight on the Killadangan forwards. But then I do think, like, if Conor Hammersley is there, he'll definitely be a huge addition. Just will take some of the scoring load. Like, they're relying on Cathal Burke a lot for scores. But fascinating for me is that what way do Clonolty approach this? Are they approaching it to win to finish second, or are they approaching it to win not to finish bottom, like, and potentially being in a relegation playoff? Like, I don't think they'll go down, but like, I suppose when you looked at this group of death, like, you don't want to be the team to finish bottom, like, because like they all feel they can get to the knockout stages, like but like I do think a Killadangan scoring threat, if they fire at all, I think they'll have too much for Clonolty.
And just I was saying to Shane just before we started out, Dennis, and maybe on the back of this you might follow up, but are there any players that aren't on the county scene currently that might kind of be catching the eye of Liam Cahill? We've kind of mentioned Darren McCarthy already, so he's one lad, maybe not in the short term, but maybe slightly more medium term, might catch his eye.
Yeah, like I'd be like the likes of Sam O'Farrell and Darren McCarthy. I would be thinking, okay, they have 2 more years eligibility at under 20. That'll be their primary focus, but that's not to say maybe they shouldn't be started on and maybe brought into the senior squad every now and again, just to get a feel for, maybe started on a program, or maybe 3 and 4 years time they'll be senior ready. Like, so maybe, what would you say, soccer rugby parlance sort of development, you sort of identify players that maybe you want to fast track, maybe that because you see their potential. So like those two would be more underage. You're looking maybe guys in their early 20s that are maybe like Conor Whelan and Mullinahone definitely is probably one that stood out for me. Conor Hennessy and Nina, probably he's another one. Who else? Jack Delaney and Tumi Vara. Definitely just guys that maybe in the short term that could make an impact. Maybe not next year, but maybe next year for the year after. Hopefully they could prove me wrong. I suppose they're probably the ones that are springing to mind at the moment. I can't. I'm sure there's a few more that come into my head, but I suppose Eddie Ryan I would class him maybe in the Sam O'Farrell sort of area. I think maybe he's finished under 28. Dennis, is he? He's
just out. He's I'm not 100%.
He's one more year under 20, but I think he's definitely another one as well.
Anyone else that hasn't been mentioned there that you can think of off the top of the head, Dennis?
No, look, there's the likes of I'm not sure Shane mentioned Darrell Stakeland there, but he's moving nicely too. You have the likes of Creedon there. He was on the panel already. There's a lot of lads that were on the panel, maybe that might make the cut, but they might get a second chance. There's a few of them might get a second chance, a few of them might not. But I think Shane is fairly accurate there in what he's saying. There's still, you're looking at the matches there. There's a lot of lads that have been there already. I suppose Sean Keneally from Donegal is one I like the look of there. I'm not sure of his age profile either, but I suppose to be sensible, Tip management will probably leave lads that are under 20 to play away under 20. They won't bring them in. But as Shane said, it'd be nice to have them dipping in and out and just getting a feel for it, But again, you've covered a lot of them there.
Yeah, and just before we go to the Premier Intermediate, I might ask you about the Camogie Club Championship. So that's underway, and I'll just kind of call out the results and then maybe throw it to you, Dennis, just in terms of what you've seen over the weekend. But Group 1, Drum and Inch beat Burgess D'Hara 4-11 to 2-12, fairly high score in there. Nina beat lost to Silver Mines 1-9 to 3-17. That was Group 1. And then Group 2, Clonalty Rossmore 19, Knockavilla Kickham's 8. Borrisoleigh 15 points, Cashel King Cormac's 14. But Dennis, any thoughts on what we've seen in the opening weekend in the Camogie?
Yeah, I suppose the big surprise was Borrisoleigh beating Cashel there. That Borrisoleigh are only up from intermediate, so that was a good win for Borrisoleigh. I suppose Cashel ruled their discipline. I think Borrisoleigh scored 14 frees against them, so that was one area. And there was a windy day as well, so it was kind of game of two halves. Clonalty, you would have expected them to come out on top against Knockavilla, and I think conditions were bad, but they were emphatic enough in that win. And again, Silver Mines had a big win now over Nina. You wouldn't have expected them maybe to win by as much, but Nina are struggling for wins at senior level for the last few years. And then Drum and Inch kind of ground out a win as well over Burgess D'Hara. That was a good game enough. But again, just a bit of experience, and you even have the likes of Michelle Woodlock, Joanne Ryan getting goals still for Drum, so they're not going away anytime soon. So they're in good position. They've lost Guiva Burke is a big loss for them this year in the goals, but they've replaced her with one of the Keneallys there, and it seems to be working for them so far. So there wasn't the major upset. Borrisoleigh was probably the big win of the weekend.
And Shane, we haven't had you on since Tip lost the semi-final to Waterford, and I suppose you were probably looking on at the All-Ireland final and seeing Cork impressively against Waterford, and you'd be wondering maybe should have we been there? If we would we have done better than Waterford? So what are your thoughts at the end of the campaign?
Yeah, very disappointed in the semi-final. It was just one of those days. Lost by a point, and two different things went against us. But I suppose overall the year was very enjoyable, and it was good to have silverware for the year. But again, looking at the final, it was hard to watch because you know yourself. I suppose the injury to Vicky Faulkner there for Waterford was key because they were very tight at that end. And once that happened, Amy O'Connor went to town, and hence there was a bit of they were in riot. But again, looking at ourselves, we were happy with the year just despite the way it finished. But you'll have those games like that, conditions, few refereeing decisions, little things like that went against us. But I suppose it was a good first year out, and we'll be looking to learn lots of things for the coming year.
Yeah, do you feel like the ceiling is high with this team, Dennis?
It is. There is a high ceiling, but in Camogie, from year to year, you can never be certain of what's coming the following year. There is more movement in your panel because certain players might go traveling or they might retire, or they have different things going on. So there is a bit of movement in your panel, so you can't say for certain, but definitely potential is there. The juniors had a good run, just disappointed in their last game too. And there's good underage girls coming through as well, and the actual setup of the development squads is massive there, and it's really it's the next few years now you'll see them girls coming through and pushing for places. So there's a lot of positivity in Tip Camogie.
How much has Camogie improved, and in terms of even like the standards and the professionalism is the term often used anyway? How much has that kind of shot up in the last few years, Dennis? Do you reckon?
I think it's gone up massively. Your S&C, your psychologist. You have a lot of the similar stuff that you'll have in a Tipperary senior hurling setup, I suppose. And the commitment is there. You're talking 3-4 nights collectively, and gym nights on their own as well. So there's a huge commitment, and that's one of the things maybe you find out quick enough who you have. The commitment is massive, and really some of the rest of your life takes a bit of has to be put on pause while you're committing to it, and sometimes maybe girls can't commit to that, but generally the bunch we had in this year were brilliant, and definitely it's a very professional setup. I suppose as I think Shane has said before, the likes of the charge tackle is one that's frustrating, and some of the decisions can. The refereeing decisions can upset people in that, but so there's a few little tweaks yet to get it more on a par with the hurling, but it's definitely a good game to watch. A lot better game to watch nowadays.
Is that something that Tip could maybe take the lead in, and maybe for Congress next year try and get that charge tackle amended? Because it doesn't, like, it seems to me like while there was the rule change a few years ago to allow more physicality, which was welcome, they forgot to maybe amend the rules that penalise over that, you know, the lack of physicality, or the penalised when physical challenges weren't allowed.
Yeah, definitely to be something to look at, because you know, generally if you're in possession of the ball, you're told you get possession and take your player on. But in this case, you get possession, you turn. If someone has their feet planted and they're in the right position, you turn and hit them. It's a free for them and a yellow card. So you know, and Tip suffered in that All-Ireland junior final to a yellow card, you know, and then they ended up having a red card, and it was fatal for them in the finish. So yeah, that would be definitely something that the Tip County Board could look at.
We might move on to the Premier Intermediate as well. I'll just go through the fixtures and per group, and then I'll throw it out to you. So Group 1, Cashel King Cormac's are top, St. Mary's are second on 2 points, as are Ballina and Moyne Templetui are bottom. So the final couple of games this weekend, Ballina against Cashel King Cormac's and Moyne Templetui against St. Mary's. How do you see these going, Shane?
The Ballina Cashel game, fascinating for me. I think Ballina would have got a lot out of their win over Moyne Templetui, and that their football is going well. There's a bit of momentum there, and Stephen O'Brien is getting more minutes into his legs. I think Cashel will be favourites. I thought they were very impressive against St. Mary's, and but then will they feel maybe they've half qualified if they're not switched on? Maybe it could open the door for Ballina. I think if Cashel can produce another strong performance off the St. Mary's win, I definitely think they're massive contenders for this. So I think this will be tight. I don't think because I think both teams are comfortable in possession. They like moving the ball through the lines. I think this is a game of two teams that sort of play very similar. Probably Cashel and Moyne Templetui, they've Garrod O'Connor back. They're probably playing to try and avoid the relegation spot. But I thought Mary's were pretty good now even in defeat to Cashel. I thought, what's his name? Peter McGarry got a couple of brilliant goals and one assist and one brilliant goal. So, but I probably lean towards St. Mary's and Cashel get the wins in that group. Yeah,
Moyne Templetui will be hoping that Conor Bowe, who was centre back the last day, that he's fit to play this one. Yeah, they'll need more from Garrod O'Connor as well. Any thoughts on these ones, Dennis?
Yeah, I'm impressed with Ballina the way they finished against Moyne Templetui the last day. But I think Mary's have Ballina on the head-to-head. So, you know, there's a lot of permutations there. You know, Moyne Templetui can get out of the relegation if they're able to get a win. So there's loads to play for. I suppose I'd be leaning towards maybe Cashel and Mary's as well. But, you know, again, I wouldn't be surprised if the results turned out the opposite way. But all teams have something to play for, a real tight group there.
Yeah, Group 2 is very tight also. Carrick-Swan, they're top with 3 points. Thurles and Aero Gannacarty, they're on 2 apiece, and Sean Tracy's there on 1. So Shane, Carrick-Swan, they'll meet Aero Gannacarty this weekend, and Sean Tracy's, they'll meet Thurles Sarsfield second team.
Yeah, so you're probably looking at Swan and Gannacarty, the winner of that game, I suppose you're looking at if there's two winners in each of the games, it'll be those winners will go through, I would think. I'm leaning towards Gannacarty. I thought just their recent senior pedigree, they got finished very strong against Sean Tracy's the last day in that West Derby, and look, I don't think the loss to Sarsfields in round 1 was fatal. Like, it's probably the worst time to play Sarsfields when they're at their strongest. So I think Gannacarty will probably get through there, and I fancy Sarsfields to beat Sean Tracy's in the other one. I think Sarsfields probably just a bit too much talent there for Sean Tracy's.
Yeah, not bad having Mikey Cahill at centre back for them. Any thoughts on it, Dennis?
Yeah, I just think Tracy's might, you know, they're still in with a shout. They're on 1 point, but if they can get the win, I think they might have a shout at that one. But again, you know, Swans, Aero, that's a hard one to call. And, you know, it could go either way. Well, Swans have had a nice campaign so far, so it wouldn't be on the realms of possibility to get a win there as well.
Yeah, Group 3, Burgess, they're top after 2 wins from 2. Clonakilty, they're second on 3 points with a win and a draw. And then Newport, they're on 1 point, and Silvermines, they're already out. They're on 0 points. So Burgess against Clonakilty, and Newport will meet Silvermines, Shane.
Yeah, Burgess Clonakilty is sort of a top of the table game. Like Burgess are already qualified, but they don't have top spots secured. And I know I think Stephen Murray is sort of playing on a hamstring at the moment. I'd say that they'd love to maybe rest him up in this game, but like they'd be keen maybe to try and win it and finish top of the group and reduce the chances of being a preliminary quarter final. I think Burgess probably, I fancy them to get the job done there. Be tight enough. They played in the preliminary quarter final last year, and Burgess won narrowly enough. Newport Silvermines, like Newport can still qualify, but they need a Clonakilty loss and then a huge scoring rate turned around. So I think it's a long shot even for that to happen. Realistically, probably this game against the Mines is to avoid the loser goes to relegation. Like both teams, I think, probably been to the big disappointments in the championship that they just haven't maybe fired on all cylinders yet. I know Newport are probably missing a crew of lads from last year, and it's probably showing up a bit this year. The Mines just haven't clicked for whatever reason. Jason looks a bit maybe like the inter-county season has maybe taken a lot out of him. But then they're local rivals too, so there could be a bit of fire in this one. Just I think maybe Newport, maybe to shade it, they probably had the better level of performance, with only scoring 11 points. The last day against Burgess was very poor. So, but then the Mines only scored 13. So like they're both teams coming in probably in negative mindset. So probably Newport maybe to shade it.
Yeah, Dennis.
Yeah, I think maybe Burgess, they're moving well, but they might not chance Stephen Murray now. He definitely looked the last day. That's only 2 weeks ago, and a hamstring won't heal that quick. So, but if they can win without him, even, it'll be all the better for them. But I think Clonakilty, they're probably going to go through as well with the score difference and that. But I think they could have a right crack at this. They've been disappointed with some of the results they've had. So, and they're definitely a decent Premier Intermediate team. So I fancy they might get a win there, but it won't make a whole lot of difference to the group. And the other two, then, again, Newport have had the edge in their performances, but at the same time, the Mines, one game to save their season. They haven't really kicked into gear at all yet this year. And if they've one chance, you never know. And with Jason Ford on your team, you wouldn't write him off either.
And then the final group, Laura will meet Portrue. Laura are top, they're on 4 points. Killinall and Gortnahoe Glengool on 2 each, and Portrue, they're at the bottom with 0. So Gortnahoe will meet Killinall, and that's a bit of a straight shootout for qualification. Shane's Laura, yeah, you're going well, Shane, so I won't put you on the spot there at the moment. But Dennis, any thoughts on these two games?
Yeah, look, you have to fancy Laura against Port. Port are struggling there at the bottom of the group. So they're, you'd have to fancy Laura, and Laura are flying, and there was a big win against Killinall the last day. So Killinall, Gortnahoe will be probably any more even if you're Gortnahoe, they have 2 points on the board each. So whoever wins that one will probably go through as the second place team. But again, it's probably hard to bet against Killinall. They have a nice team. I've seen them against Portroe, but they will be disappointed at the last day, I'd say. So they'll be looking to make amends, but they won't walk out over Gortnahoe, that's for sure. So that's a hard one to call. Maybe Killinall will be a point or two.
Yeah, so Shane, we won't put you on the spot too much about Laura Killinall, but Gortnahoe Glengool against Killinall, how do you see that going?
Yeah, I suppose on the basis of what I've seen, it'll be tight. This is a local derby, they're cross division rivals, but there's a fair border between the two of them, so this will be spicy, I think. And I think Gortnahoe beat Killinall last year, I think in the first round of the championship. So I think Killinall will be out for revenge in this one, and I think they might just get it. I thought they hurled pretty well against us. Both teams hurled pretty well against Gortnahoe. I probably feel they should have beaten us. They were a good bit. They're for 45 minutes. They were the better team. So I didn't think their level of performance against Portrue was as good. But look, maybe psychologically they were probably told you were going to win easily. And sometimes Portrue start well, which they did. It turns into a battle, but they finish very well. So yeah, I'd probably lean towards Killinall. Look, the loser is still going to go into preliminary quarter final because both have won their divisions. So it's probably a free swing for both teams. I don't think it'll get too bogged down here, but I think this will be lively. Maybe Killinall, maybe just to make up for last year, might shade this one.
And I might give a bit of an overview then of the Intermediate Championship and just see if there's any games that really stick out to you. But just Group 1, Carrickdavins, they're top this weekend. They play against Knockavilla, who are bottom of that group. And then Drummond against Darvale Rovers, they're on 2 points each, so they're going to lock horns in Borlahan. Group 2 will see Kappa White against Killadangan. Both of those teams are still in the mix. Obviously, Kappa White are top, and then also Ballingarry against Kilfeacle. So Ballingarry are on 2 points, goal Kilfeacle. They're at the bottom at 0. Table 3, Moneygall, they'll meet Kilsheal and Kilcash, and Borlahan Duala, they'll meet Shannon Rovers. So Moneygall are top on 3. Borlahan also on 3, Kilsheal and Kilcash 2, and Shannon Rovers are propping up the table on 0. And then the fourth group, I should say, Burrs again, they're top on 4, Skeenerinky and Ballybacon Grange are on 2 each, and then Upperchurch, second team, they're bottom. So Ballybacon Grange against Burrs Kane and Skeenerinky against Upperchurch. So any games across those groups, Shane, that are sticking out to you? And then Dennis, maybe you can see what tickles your fancy.
Yeah, I suppose the one that sticks out a mile is Moneygall Kilsheal, and they've played twice in the last couple of years, 1 win each. And in that group of Boherlahan, I think I've said it a few times. I think the winner of the championship will come from one of those 3. Maybe Burskane and Kappa White is maybe the 2 after that. But I think both, regardless of the result, both teams, one of them is going to have to go down the preliminary quarter-final route. I don't think either of them will want the extra game. So I probably would be leaning towards Moneygall. By all accounts, their match with Boherlahan Duella in the last round was outstanding. It was a drawing game, outstanding game for intermediate level. You're probably thinking you have a couple of clubs there who are probably wouldn't look out of place in Premier Intermediate, but only one of them potentially will go up, if the form holds. So probably Moneygall Kilsheal and probably the standout game of the weekend in Intermediate.
Yeah, Dennis, anything sticking out to you?
No, just Kappa White are going well in Group 2 there, and they have Killadangan, and you'd expect them to finish off with a 3 out of 3 there, I suppose, in that one. And then you'll have a Ballingarry Gold and get more points on the board. So you'll be expecting probably Kappa and Ballingarry to come through in Group 2. And that some of them teams that likes the Kappa White, they've been down a while now, so they'll be delighted to get into the latter stages of the championship. And it's good to see them making progress.
Yeah, and Dennis, just a final thing before we finish up. This is the power rankings that Shane had after round 2 of the hurling championship. I'll just bring it up on screen here. Is there anything that you think, and in brackets after their names is where they were after the first week, but otherwise that's where they are now. Is there anyone there that you think should be a little bit higher? Who's your favourite even for the championship? Just looking at, I suppose, Killadangan. I was listening a bit last week. Killadangan got knocked down a good bit, and they're still probably contenders. Definitely, they could sneak up ahead of Toom and Borrisalee there probably. But I know Shane is going on matches that he's seen this year. Again, it is looking at, I suppose. I like the look of Nina at the moment, but I wouldn't be hanging my hat on it either, but I just like the look of him, and throw Jake Morris and Tommy Heffernan back into the mix. And Johnny Kelly has them moving well there. They seem to have, everyone knows their job, and they adapted well to poor conditions below in Dala the last day. And again, this weekend they'll have to get a win over Mullinahone, because they don't want to be using their pass from the north. But I think they're contenders, and again, a lot more are up there at the top, but they're operating without. I think Joey Hennessy and John Maher are missing from the spine of their defence, and they've conceded a bit more this year than they have other years, and I think that's part of the issue. But again, if it was another club, they'd be crying about it. They have got on with it seamlessly, so they'll probably be improving as they go along, as they do normally. Okay, well, look, lads, thanks very much. Great show as ever. Dennis, we'll chat to you again soon. Shane, we'll see you again next week.
Thanks, lads.